Most people over 50 are doing everything right, eating better, taking supplements, trying to stay active, and yet the inflammation, the joint pain, the morning stiffness, it just won't go away. And here's what I want you to consider today. It may not be what you're taking. It might be how you're taking it. Because when it comes to one of nature's most studied and celebrated anti-inflammatory foods, turmeric, there is one simple mistake that millions of people make every single day. And that mistake silently cancels out almost every benefit turmeric has to offer. Today, I'm going to walk you through exactly what that mistake is, what to add to turmeric to dramatically increase its power, and why the popular advice you've probably heard, the advice about black pepper, may actually be working against you. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you'll never look at your morning turmeric the same way again. Turmeric is powerful, but only if your body can actually use it. Let's start with what we know. Turmeric has been used for thousands of years in traditional medicine across India, Southeast Asia, and the Middle East. Modern science has now confirmed what ancient healers already knew. Turmeric contains a compound called curcumin, and curcumin is one of the most potent natural anti-inflammatory substances ever studied. Did you know that curcumin has been shown in research to target the same inflammatory pathways linked to arthritis, heart disease, Alzheimer's, type 2 diabetes, and even certain types of cancer? That's remarkable. In fact, in some studies, curcumin has performed comparably to pharmaceutical anti-inflammatory drugs without the dangerous side effects those drugs are known to cause. So if turmeric is this powerful, why are so many people still struggling with chronic inflammation, joint pain, and stiffness even after months of taking it? The answer comes down to one word: absorption. The shocking truth about curcumin absorption: here's something that might genuinely surprise you. When you consume curcumin, the active compound in turmeric, without the right companion, less than 1% of it actually enters your bloodstream. Read that again. Less than 1%. That means if you're sprinkling turmeric on your food, drinking turmeric tea, or swallowing a standard turmeric capsule without anything to help it absorb, over 99% of that curcumin passes straight through your digestive system without ever reaching the tissues where it's needed. It's not that turmeric doesn't work. It's that it was never properly delivered to your cells in the first place. So what's the reason behind this? It all comes down to a basic principle of chemistry that has enormous implications for your health. Fat-soluble versus water-soluble, why it changes everything. Curcumin is what's called fat-soluble. This means it dissolves in fat, not water. Think of it this way. Imagine trying to mix cooking oil in a glass of water. No matter how hard you stir, the oil and the water just don't combine. They separate. Now imagine that oil is curcumin, and the water is your digestive system without any fat. The curcumin simply cannot integrate. It can't cross the intestinal wall. It can't enter the lymphatic system. It can't reach your cells. Your intestinal lining has a protective barrier that fat-soluble compounds must cross in order to be absorbed. Without fat present, curcumin simply hits that barrier and keeps moving, right out of your body, unused and wasted. But when curcumin is paired with healthy fat, fat acts like a vehicle, a delivery system. When fat is present in the digestive system, it opens up the absorption pathway through the lymphatic system, a network of vessels that run throughout your entire body. This is the same route used by fat-soluble vitamins like vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, and vitamin K. When curcumin travels through the lymphatic system, it bypasses the liver's rapid first-pass breakdown, meaning it stays active longer, circulates deeper, and actually reaches the places where inflammation lives. Your joints, your arteries, your brain, your immune tissues. Studies confirm that when curcumin is paired with healthy fat, absorption increases by several 100%, not a small improvement, a transformation in effectiveness. What healthy fats should you use? This is the practical part, and it's easier than you might think. The best fats to pair with turmeric include ghee, clarified butter that has been used in Indian cooking for centuries. It is incredibly rich in fat-soluble nutrients and has a natural affinity for curcumin. Coconut oil, widely used across Southeast Asia precisely because of how well it carries turmeric's compounds into the body. MCT oil, a concentrated form of coconut fat that absorbs rapidly and efficiently. Olive oil, particularly extra virgin olive oil, which carries its own powerful anti-inflammatory benefits. Avocado oil, a versatile, heat-stable fat ideal for cooking with turmeric. Full-fat dairy, such as whole milk or cream, which works well in golden milk recipes. Here's a secret most seniors don't know. Traditional cultures that used turmeric daily, the societies where arthritis rates were lower, where cognitive decline came later, where joint health was preserved well into old age, almost always cooked their turmeric in fat. Ghee in India. coconut oil in Thailand and Indonesia. They didn't have clinical trials to explain why it worked, but they had generations of lived results. Modern science simply caught up to what their kitchens already knew. Heat makes it even more powerful. There's another step that amplifies absorption even further, and it's one most people skip entirely. Heat. When you gently warm turmeric in fat, whether you're sautéing it, simmering it in a soup, or stirring it into warm coconut milk, the heat increases curcumin's solubility. It allows the curcumin to fully bind to the fat molecules, creating a bioavailable form that your body recognizes, accepts, and absorbs efficiently. This is why turmeric cooked into warm dishes consistently outperforms raw turmeric or turmeric mixed into cold water. A simple golden milk made with warm full-fat coconut milk and a teaspoon of turmeric simmered for 5 minutes provides far more curcumin to your bloodstream than a turmeric capsule taken with a glass of water. A handful of scrambled eggs cooked with turmeric and coconut oil? Genuinely more effective than most expensive supplements. Turmeric stirred into bone broth and gently warmed, one of the most bioavailable, gut-friendly, and anti-inflammatory meals you can make. You don't need an expensive formulation, you need fat, warmth, and consistency. What curcumin actually does once it's absorbed. Now let's talk about what happens inside your body when curcumin is properly absorbed and actually reaches your tissues, because this is where things get extraordinary. In your joints, once curcumin enters the bloodstream through the lymphatic pathway, it begins targeting a master inflammatory switch in the body called NFKB, pronounced nuclear factor kappa B. Think of NFKB as the on switch for inflammation. When it's stuck in the on position, which is exactly what happens in people with chronic inflammation, it triggers a cascade of inflammatory signals that cause pain, stiffness, swelling, and tissue damage. Curcumin helps turn that switch off. It also suppresses enzymes called COX-2, the very same enzymes targeted by common over-the-counter and prescription pain medications. In fact, clinical studies have shown that properly absorbed curcumin can reduce joint stiffness and pain at levels comparable to ibuprofen and other non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, but without damaging the gut lining, kidneys, or cardiovascular system that those drugs are known to harm with long-term use. Did you know that long-term NSAID use is one of the leading causes of gastrointestinal bleeding and kidney damage in adults over 60? Curcumin offers a gentler, safer alternative, as long as it's properly absorbed. In your brain, here's something truly remarkable. Curcumin is one of the very few natural compounds that can actually cross the blood-brain barrier, the protective filter that prevents most substances from entering the brain. Once it crosses that barrier, curcumin reduces neuroinflammation, lowers oxidative stress, and has been shown in studies to reduce the accumulation of beta-amyloid plaques, the sticky protein deposits linked to Alzheimer's disease and cognitive decline. For anyone concerned about memory, mental clarity, and brain health as they age, this is significant. And it's one of the reasons researchers have been so interested in turmeric as a potential tool in the fight against neurodegenerative disease. In your liver, curcumin has also demonstrated the ability to reduce fat accumulation and inflammation in the liver, making it potentially valuable for the millions of people dealing with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, one of the fastest-growing chronic conditions in the world today. But again, none of this happens if curcumin never leaves your digestive tract. None of this is possible without proper absorption. And proper absorption requires fat. Why taking more turmeric without fat doesn't help? This is a mistake I see constantly, and it's worth addressing directly. If turmeric hasn't been working for you, your first instinct might be to take more of it. A bigger capsule, a stronger powder, a higher dose. But here's the reality. More turmeric without fat doesn't increase absorption. It increases waste. Your body doesn't absorb curcumin based on quantity alone. It absorbs it based on delivery. You can take 10 times the dose of curcumin, but if there's no fat present, the vast majority of it still passes through your system without entering your bloodstream. This is why some people swear that turmeric completely changed their lives, reduced their pain, cleared their mind, helped them sleep, while others say they took it for months and felt absolutely nothing. The spice isn't different. The fat is. Now let's talk about black pepper and why it may be hurting you. For years, black pepper has been marketed as the magic key to unlocking turmeric's power. This advice has been repeated so often and on so many supplement labels that it has become accepted as common sense. But here's the truth most people are never told. Black pepper contains a compound called piperine, and on paper, piperine sounds impressive. Studies do show that piperine can slow down the breakdown of curcumin in the liver, allowing curcumin to remain in the bloodstream longer. But that's only half the story. What piperine actually does. Piperine works by inhibiting cytochrome P450 enzymes, the very enzymes your liver relies on to process toxins, metabolize medications, and regulate hormones. When those enzymes are slowed down, it's not just curcumin that's affected. Everything else passing through your system is affected too. This means piperine can alter how medications are absorbed, how long drugs stay active in your body, and how efficiently your liver clears harmful substances. For anyone over 50 who takes blood pressure medication, blood thinners, antidepressants, or cholesterol medication, and that describes a large portion of our viewers, this is not a minor concern. It's a real risk that is almost never disclosed on supplement packaging. What piperine does to your gut, but perhaps the most overlooked danger of piperine is what it does to the gut lining. Research shows that piperine increases what scientists call intestinal permeability, commonly known as leaky gut. It does this by disrupting the tight junctions in the gut wall, the microscopic seals that prevent unwanted particles from passing into the bloodstream. When those seals are weakened, bacterial toxins, undigested food particles, and inflammatory compounds can leak through the gut wall and enter circulation, directly triggering immune reactions and systemic inflammation. Stop and think about that for a moment. You are taking turmeric specifically to reduce inflammation. But if you're pairing it with piperine and piperine is making your gut more permeable, you may be triggering the very inflammation you're trying to calm. This is why many people experience bloating, burning, stomach cramps, or nausea when they take black pepper-enhanced turmeric supplements and assume turmeric simply doesn't agree with them. In many cases, it's not the turmeric at all. It's the piperine. Piperine is not true absorption. Here's another important distinction. The bioavailability boost that piperine provides is temporary and, in a sense, artificial. Piperine doesn't help curcumin actually enter your cells. It doesn't improve how curcumin crosses the intestinal wall. It doesn't escort curcumin into your joints, your brain, or your liver. All it does is slow how fast the liver clears it. That's delayed elimination, not true absorption. True absorption means curcumin is actually entering cell membranes, reaching inflamed tissues, and doing its work where it matters. Piperine doesn't accomplish that. Healthy fat does. Fat doesn't interfere with your liver's detox pathways. Fat doesn't irritate the gut lining. Fat doesn't alter drug metabolism in unpredictable ways. Instead, fat works with your biology, carrying curcumin through the lymphatic system, bypassing the liver's first-pass metabolism entirely, and delivering it exactly where it's needed. Traditional cultures never depended on black pepper alone to activate turmeric. Turmeric was cooked in fat-rich preparations, simmered in ghee, slow-cooked in coconut milk, blended into warming soups and stews. Black pepper was an optional seasoning, not a medicinal strategy. Modern supplement marketing reversed this wisdom because creating a fat-based delivery system is expensive and complex. Adding piperine to a capsule is cheap and easy. Convenience replaced centuries of biological wisdom. Your body, however, hasn't changed. Your gut hasn't changed. And the rate of chronic gut inflammation, autoimmune conditions, and digestive disorders, all of which are at historic highs, suggest that our modern shortcuts may be costing us more than we realize. Consistency, the factor that determines everything. Now here's the piece of this puzzle that almost nobody talks about, and it may be the most important of all. Most people treat inflammation like an emergency. They feel a flare-up, they take something, they wait for it to stop. Then they move on, forget about it until the next flare. But chronic inflammation doesn't work that way, and it can't be solved that way. Inflammation is not an event. It is a daily process. It is built slowly, meal by meal, habit by habit, spike by spike, until the body is locked in a constant, low-grade state of immune activation that quietly damages joints, blood vessels, nerves, and organs over years and decades. This is why taking turmeric once in a while, even if absorbed perfectly, rarely changes anything long-term. Occasional effort does not reverse a continuous process. What your immune system actually responds to. Research shows that inflammatory markers, measurable signals in the blood like C-reactive protein and interleukin-6, rise and fall based on daily inputs. What you eat today affects your inflammation today. Your pattern of eating over weeks and months determines where your baseline inflammation settles. Your immune system doesn't respond to intentions. It responds to inputs. Every single day sends a vote toward inflammation or toward repair. When curcumin is properly absorbed and delivered consistently, day after day, it sends a repeated message to the immune system. Stand down, reduce damage, allow repair. Over time, these signals accumulate. Baseline inflammation lowers. Tissues that were trapped in a constant state of damage finally get the opportunity to heal. This is why moderate, consistent daily curcumin intake, taken correctly, outperforms high-dose sporadic supplementation in study after study. The body trusts what it sees repeatedly. It responds to patterns, not emergencies. What else is feeding your inflammation? Consistency with turmeric will only take you so far if other daily habits are actively re-triggering inflammation. This is a truth that most supplement content refuses to address honestly. Blood sugar spikes. Every spike in blood sugar triggers a spike in inflammation. High glucose generates compounds called advanced glycation end products, AGs. Think of them as sticky proteins that attach to tissues, stiffen blood vessels, and activate inflammatory pathways at the cellular level. One high-sugar meal can keep inflammatory markers elevated for hours. If turmeric is taken on top of a diet high in refined carbohydrates and sugar, it's like pouring water on a fire while the gasoline is still flowing. The supplement isn't weak. The environment is hostile. Seed oils. Oils like soybean, corn, canola, and sunflower are extremely high in omega-6 fatty acids, which oxidize easily and directly fuel inflammatory signaling in the body. Research has linked excessive omega-6 intake to increased cardiovascular disease, arthritis, and metabolic dysfunction. Replacing these oils with olive oil, avocado oil, ghee, or coconut oil is one of the most impactful dietary changes anyone with chronic inflammation can make, and it conveniently also supports turmeric absorption at the same time. The role of fasting. Here's something powerful that many people overlook. Intermittent fasting dramatically changes the inflammatory environment in the body. During periods without food, insulin levels drop, oxidative stress decreases, and the body activates a cellular cleanup process called autophagy, where damaged cells and inflammatory debris are cleared away. Inflammatory pathways are naturally suppressed during fasting, independent of weight loss. When turmeric is consumed within this metabolic window, when the body is already in a calmer, lower inflammation state, its effects are measurably amplified. This is not a coincidence. It is biology working in your favor. Vitamin D and magnesium, two nutrients that are almost universally deficient in people with chronic inflammation, are vitamin D and magnesium. Low vitamin D is strongly associated with poor immune regulation and elevated inflammation. Curcumin works synergistically with adequate vitamin D levels, but struggles in a deficient state. Magnesium deficiency disrupts glucose control, impairs cellular energy production, and increases inflammatory stress at the mitochondrial level. Without enough magnesium, inflammation rises regardless of how many anti-inflammatory foods or supplements you consume. If you haven't had these levels checked recently, it may be worth a conversation with your doctor. How to use turmeric the right way, a simple daily system. Let's bring everything together into something practical. You don't need an expensive supplement. You don't need an elaborate protocol. You need a simple daily system that your body can actually work with. Step 1. Take a teaspoon of good quality turmeric powder. Step 2. Combine it with a healthy fat ghee, coconut oil, MCT oil, or olive oil. Even a small amount is enough to activate the absorption pathway. Step 3. Apply gentle heat. Stir it into warm coconut milk. Sauté it in ghee before adding it to vegetables or simmer it in a soup or broth. Step 4. Skip the black pepper. Especially if you have any gut sensitivity, take medications regularly, or deal with autoimmune or digestive conditions. Step 5. Be consistent. Every day. Not just when you feel pain. Not just for a week. Think in terms of months, because that's how long it takes for inflammation that has been building for years to meaningfully retreat. Some of the best daily options include golden milk, warm coconut milk with turmeric, a pinch of cinnamon, and a drizzle of honey, simmered gently for 5 minutes. Turmeric eggs, scrambled or fried in ghee or coconut oil with a generous pinch of turmeric. Turmeric bone broth. A cup of warm broth with turmeric stirred in, deeply nourishing and highly absorbable. Turmeric in curries, soups, or roasted vegetables cooked in olive oil or avocado oil. What changes when you get this right? When curcumin is absorbed correctly, taken consistently, and supported by a diet that doesn't constantly re-trigger inflammation, the changes that happen are real, even if they feel subtle at first. Less morning stiffness, slightly more fluid movement, a calmer gut, a little more energy, sleep that feels more restorative. These are not dramatic moments. They are signs that inflammation is retreating, quietly, the way it built up in the first place, slowly, steadily, day by day. Over weeks and months, people report that things that once caused pain no longer do. Flare-ups become less frequent and less severe. Mental clarity improves. Mood stabilizes. Because chronic inflammation doesn't just affect joints, it affects the brain, altering pain perception, mood, motivation, and cognitive function in ways that most people don't even realize until those effects begin to reverse. This is not dramatic medicine. It is effective medicine. The kind that works quietly in the background, gradually resetting inflammatory thresholds and giving the body the environment it needs to do what it was always designed to do: regulate, repair, and recover. Final thoughts. Let's recap what we've covered today, because each piece of this puzzle matters. Turmeric is genuinely one of the most powerful anti-inflammatory foods on earth. Curcumin, its active compound, has been shown to reduce inflammation at a cellular level, relieve joint pain, protect the brain, support the liver, and help regulate the immune system. But without fat, curcumin is essentially useless. Less than 1% reaches your bloodstream. The solution is not a higher dose. It is the right delivery: fat, warmth, and consistency. Black pepper and its compound piperine are not the universal solution they've been marketed as. For many people, particularly those with gut issues, autoimmune conditions, or those on multiple medications, piperine may be actively worsening the inflammation they're trying to heal. Fat is a safer, more physiologically intelligent, and more effective alternative. And consistency is everything. Inflammation is a daily process. It must be countered with daily effort. Curcumin works through accumulation, through repeated signaling, through a system of habits, not through occasional intervention. Turmeric without fat is potential. Turmeric with fat, consistency, and the right environment is power. And once you understand that, once you stop using turmeric the popular way and start using it the way your biology actually demands, you'll stop wondering why it isn't working. And you'll start experiencing why. For thousands of years across countless cultures, it was considered one of the most trusted medicines on the planet. Try it the right way. Be consistent. Give your body the signals it needs, every single day, and watch what happens over the weeks and months ahead. Thanks for watching. If this helped you see turmeric differently, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And I'll see you in the next one.